So you're going to have more viable options available to you than you originally thought. Like, so if it's romantically, it's giving that, maybe you met somebody who checks off all of your boxes, they're non-toxic or whatever, like it's a healthy connection. And so you were of the opinion that like, oh, I'm not going to find anyone else like this, you know, so I kind of like need to put all of my eggs into, this basket or whatever. Like this is my person that must be. However, I'm getting that like I don't want to say you over manifested, but I guess like there is a sense of you at a certain point in time believing that certain things would never come in for you, or it was like just a fantasy or impossible, right? And so you kept pouring energy and like feeding energy into these things that you desired, right? um there could have been some indecisiveness or like an openness in regards to what you were asking the universe for, okay? And I also think that like there's this sense of like spirit or the universe wanting to show you that they want you to feel this sense of freedom to where there isn't just like one path that you need to go down, there it's like there's you know what I mean? So there could be somebody who like checks off all of your boxes or whatever, but they still have everybody has their unique personality, right? So if you did go and like you were with them, it would be a certain lifestyle, you know what I mean? And then I'm getting that there may be at least one or two other people that are going to come into your life who also check off all of your boxes, but then again, they have their own sort of individuality and it would be a different type of lifestyle, you know, if you chose them, right? And it doesn't just have to be romantically, it could have to do with, say you got to the point where you're like, oh, I'm never getting my dream job. And maybe you had this moment of like applying to a bunch of them, you know, and just to see, I guess, not really expecting to hear back at all. And it doesn't have to be like a formal application. It could just be other things, right? And then, or like if you're like applying to a bunch of your dream universities or something like that, and then you hear back from all of them. So and then so it becomes a matter of okay, like, well, what like where do I want to live? Like what sort of lifestyle do I want to experience? If all of them were equally good, technically, you kind of just have to choose, right? It's giving like, you know, say you could achieve your wealth through being like an actor, okay? Or you could achieve your wealth through like, I don't know, day trading or something, or like being like an artist or a writer, you know what I mean? Um but obviously you kind of need to like focus on one of those things, so that you're not spread too thin, obviously. So then it becomes a matter of just what sort of lifestyle, what sort of like energy and environment do you desire? Like, do you want something that's more fast paced, or do you want something to where you'd be more more surrounded by kind of slower paced academic environments, or do you want a lifestyle where you would, be clubbing more often? You know what I mean? So it's just going to be a matter of you picking what you want for yourself, like it's your choice. And I don't know if like a lot of this collective is used to having choices, or you were expecting to ever get to a point in your life where you didn't just only have one route to take. And it's like they're all going to lead to a highest timeline, but it's giving like, it's sort of like, there are video games like I don't know, like dating simulators or something like that, and say that technically all of the options have a best ending available, right? But you kind of just have to pick which one you want the best ending available in regards to, right? So this could be a little daunting or complicated, especially if it is, multiple romantic options. And like if at some point, when the first one came in, you're like, oh, I'm never gonna meet anyone that I like click with and that is like uh I can have an actual healthy connection with. So maybe you kind of like made a bunch of promises or something like that. And then, you meet somebody else and then they're also perfectly viable. Um, and again, same with like career stuff or whatever. And like it's also giving, maybe you finally gained the courage to try out certain like hobbies or interests or sports even, or like forms of exercise, right? Um, and like this this kind of silly way to phrase it, but like I was thinking of like how, oh, if you go skiing or whatever, you can there's like two different aesthetics, you can like wear the, I don't forget if it's called, I forget what it's called, you can like go and go for like the more like baggy aesthetic, or you can go for the more like form fitted one, and they like kind of have two different energies, but at the end of the day you're still just like skiing or snowboarding or whatever, if that resonates with anybody. But it's like neither is technically wrong. It's just more of a matter of like what feels the most authentic to you. And again, I'm just getting heavily that it may have like you may not have ever been at a point in your life where you genuinely could choose, and like all of the options available to you were perfectly fine. It just would, you know, it's I guess, going with that example, it's sort of like choosing between oh, do you want to lean into being fit by being a Pilates princess, or do you want to lean into being fit by, I forget what the term is, but or whatever, or like by like lifting and stuff like that, and being, more like like a muscle mommy type, you know what I mean? And so obviously both are going to lead to health, improved health, and both are good for you, and you probably like feel better about yourself and have a certain physique or whatever, and like they can both be attractive, if that's like, your priority or whatever. It just comes down to a matter of your personal preference. And I think that that's the whole point of this phase of your life that you're entering, where you will genuinely have more choices. It's, say yeah, like in the past, financially, you may have been to a point where like, oh, if you go to the store, you have to get the budget items, or you have to like strategize with like get being the most efficient or something like that. Or, if you were thinking like, oh, if I go on to ever be able to buy a house, I'm likely just going to have to get the one that is within my budget, as opposed to what like checks off all my boxes in like a perfect, like, in my dream house or whatever. But it's giving that like, you will actually be able to choose, and it's sort of a matter of like the difficulty is going to come, like the difficulty in your life at this time is going to come from like you being more decisive and being able to figure out like what and like choose what you actually want, versus like being able to find something that you're able to attain, if that makes sense. So it's less of a matter of, trying really hard to find where you fit, versus like now you're going to sort of try to like be able to pick and choose what actually like fits you in your life, you know? It's sort of like the difference between you dressing a certain way, or like you having to like needing to dress a certain way. I don't know, it's weird. Um, it's sort of like branching out from thinking, oh, I have to buy these sorts of clothes because that's my aesthetic and that's how people view me, versus like just being interested in fashion overall, and just like being interested in things that are visually appealing, and that it becomes more of like there's more options, you're not being pigeonholed. It's sort of like you may get overwhelmed by the amount of options that are available to you, especially like again, if you most of your life were very confined, either of the mind, or you literally were like financially confined, or like, you know, uh I would say that if you battled with some form of, I don't know, like addiction or trauma that like held you back due to fear in a lot of ways, or if you were depressed, which obviously then you wouldn't have enough energy to do a lot of things, um, or if you were put in a place of survival mode where you just had to focus on doing the essential things, um, I'm just getting that like if this hasn't happened yet, this it's just like a sign to mentally prepare for it, to where you're not going to just have to say yes to the first option anymore. um and that may be sort of, it's not a trick, because I know some people will be like, oh, this is too good to be true, or like, oh, or like the worst thing that you could say is like, oh, this is like the devil's trying to trick me and confuse me. Like, no, no, that's not what's happening. You're attracting things that are genuinely in alignment with you. It's just like you have to, it's sort of like if you, I don't know, you're meant to be creating your life, so it's just whatever fits your vision for your future the most is the right option, and you have to be a little selfish in regards to that. um but try not to make too many like big future promises, because a lot of new options are about to enter your life, I guess.